1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Trial by Error Variety Show podcast. The podcast that features unsigned and local bands. Also, I'm willing to talk to anybody. Notable bands, signed bands, bands that have been all over the world and have platinum records. I'm willing to talk to anybody. I really want to extract the stories of those people. So, if this is the first episode you're listening to, there is tons of content. Hours and hours and tens of hours, at least, the very least. I've also got some video interviews up on YouTube. We've got a Patreon. You can support us if you want to see this thing jump to the next level. There's live shows that we do here out of Bandera, Texas, that feature at least 10 bands a day. And I try to pay all of those bands, or at least the ones that will accept money. And the ones that don't accept money, they do it for the love. They do it as support for this podcast. And thank all of them, even the ones we pay. Thank you guys for coming out, entertaining this otherwise very desolate and boring town. We have been doing this for about 4 years now, and the podcast only exists for 10 months. We're going into our 11th month now. I've been trying to put out 2 episodes a month. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Either way, I try. And hopefully you're listening to this for free. If somebody's charging you for this, then you need to get off of that channel and go to a free one like iTunes or SoundCloud or whatever. I highly doubt that somebody's charging you to hear these episodes. If they are, they're ripping both of us off, man. This one here is a little special to me in particular. If you've visited us on our SoundCloud page, you've noticed that From the Cocoon and Trial by Error share a page. That's really only for fiscal purposes. In other words, I can only upload so much content for a free SoundCloud account, but I can unload all of the podcasts and any recordings that I do, demos or otherwise, on there. And I've done a really good job of separating them and making playlists. So if you are on the SoundCloud and you want to explore the music further, there's definitely a whole playlist of From the Cocoon on there. That is a band that I've been working on for about 9 years. It's a project, not necessarily a band that I've been working on, because it's really only been a functional band for just a couple years of its existence. We've only played about 8 shows, maybe 10, and most of them are at the Trial by Error live events. It really isn't about a live performance. It's really just about the message, and for me, it's always been about documenting, I don't know, emotion and circumstances. And I've even got a couple of novelty songs on there. I'll put those in this podcast just to really explore the range. My children are my number one fans, I would say. They always request to listen to it, and I'm not ashamed to listen to myself in the car or whatever, because to me the music is good, and I've always enjoyed it. So I really hope you enjoy this podcast. It's near and dear to me. It's centered around the evolution of my musical stylings. I like to think of the whole thing as kind of a mixtape. It's got a little rock, a little grunge, a little indie, some hip hop, there's some folk roots in there as well. So I'll try to do what I can here and give you a good idea of what kind of music we have, but also I do encourage you to go to the SoundCloud and check out the full playlist. There's just so much more out there. I'm only going to put like 7 songs in here. It is a special episode. My children, my sons actually, Kelton and Music, made sort of a mock podcast. I let them sit behind the mics and just play around a few months ago, and I'm finally just getting around to putting it into an actual episode. So thank you, boys, for supporting Daddy. It's really it's really fun to hear them sing my songs and to have their love and support, because I feel like this is kind of a part of my legacy that I'm leaving behind to them. I'm going to start out with one of the first songs I ever did with this project, and Christopher Byman actually he produced the track for me, and it's called The Underground. It was recorded at 3 a.m. in a tent in my parents' front yard in late 2007, and I didn't release it until 2008, so it's almost a decade old, and it really just kind of pivoted me into making more music and understanding that this was something that I wanted to pursue. It kind of started that night. Not that I hadn't had other bands or anything. I had just been sort of on a hiatus from playing music and kind of fallen into the slump of the boring town stuff. And this song here was just, it was like a breath of fresh air, you know? I hadn't heard anything like it come out of this town. There's tons of stuff like it out there, but not where I'm from, the cowboy capital of the world. You know how it goes. Your town is probably known for its genre, you know. This is the next town over. San Antonio is just like all metal. And then you go to Austin and it's all like blues and jam bands. And so I felt like I was doing something unique for where I was at the time. And I'll let you guys decide if you like it or not. The song is called The Underground by From the Cocoon.
Digging down. Wouldn't believe what I found in the underground. Below the roots and hard cement, a city exists without torment, fueled by love and nothing else. People playing every hand that they were dealt. The lights were sound in the underground. I wondered how they got around, but my eyes got fixed and I'd soon adapt. The questions that I had got full with facts. Take you there if I could, so all of this could be understood. But there's no directions to this place. There's not a name on a single face. The underground, the underground. People know how to live in the underground. Take a step back and look around. Cause now you're trapped in the underground. Don't be scared, take my hand. This love that blows has zero dams. It'll take you in if you're not aware. But that won't happen as long as I'm there. Grab a shovel, let's all go. Do it now or we'll never know. There's no money to spend on merchandise, and the locals here are always nice. They'll take you in and you'll call it home. Once you come, you won't wanna go. No religious wars or drums of oil, no mouth unfed and no food to spoil. Who would have thought this all exists below our feet under the soil? Yeah, but I must admit, I take all the dirt over all the bullshit. It's dirty language, it's still around. We got dirty mouths in the underground. Sexy people, they're there too, just the same as me and you. There's few things here that have been tainted. It's like the most beautiful picture ever painted. As dark as it is, there's tons of color, pouring from people who love each other. The underground, people know how to live in the underground. Take a step back and look around. People know how to live in the underground. The underground. Take a step back and look around. The underground, people know how to live in the underground. Do it now, on the double. Grab a shovel, do it now, on the double. Grab a shovel.
You're a motherfucking shovel, bitch.
Yeah, so as you can see, I was kind of experimenting there. I definitely have always been a hip-hop fan. I'm not like I'm not a great rapper or anything, but I enjoy the art. And I guess what I was trying to say there with that song is, you know, that's obviously, you can tell it's sort of a place that doesn't exist. Even the underground is the underbelly nowadays. It's grimy. And you know, you find a lot of synthetic stuff even in the underground now. It's very different. So they say the underground is much greater than the surface, but I feel like everything's being extracted and piled up on top of the surface, so there's not much left down there. I don't really want to interview myself. So I'll just kind of walk you through the evolution as I go and tell you kind of where I came from with some of these songs, sort of the evolution of the project itself. And, you know, you guys can get to know me through interviewing other bands. Go back and listen to the 20 plus episodes there are prior, and that's me in there. So I tried to interview my best friend and bandmate Corey, and he had just a lot going on. It was kind of an unfortunate time, and we never really got to it. David, the other writing partner that I have, is in a band called The Destroyer of Worlds. It's a very heavy metal band. He does a lot of screaming and stuff, and he's kind of incorporated his metal stylings into our music. Over the years, it's evolved into sort of a rocky, grungy feel. But whenever I write a song by myself, I always start out on acoustic, and I just pour my emotion into it, and it's always easier for me to do that, I feel like, if I'm just writing it by myself. Anytime David comes to me with one of his pre-written songs, it becomes sort of a concept that I have to work on. And yes, the lyrics are autobiographical. However, I tend to focus more on the concept of those songs rather than just the emotions, because it's sort of already pre-structured for me, and I make it fit. They're good songs, and they're definitely, radio ready. They're just not my particular style, I guess. They're not my particular style. They're more of a, I guess it's just formulated. I feel like David's a really good songwriter, and he's very good with structure, and I'm very good at just finding a simple progression and flowing over it. So I'll show you an example of that with a song called Deja Voodoo, and it's really just about me kind of struggling to find my place as a husband and a cheater, you know. I felt at the time that I could justify my infidelities, being young or being deprived or just being angry or whatever it was. But truthfully, I hurt my wife, and we struggled because it wasn't just one time or two times. It was multiple times throughout a 9-year marriage. And luckily we're friends now, and we've come to an understanding of why all these things have happened through therapy and counseling and rehabilitation and all kinds of stuff, and really just through the friendship itself, kind of stepping back out of a marriage and becoming friends again, and really being able to be truthful with ourselves and not have the emotional stigma and the responsibility of carrying each other's weight, you know? I mean, friends do, don't get me wrong, but it's really more the responsibility of your significant other in those really tight scenarios. I feel like the people you're speaking your love language to need to know your love language, and it took many years, unfortunately. And what I was trying to get with this song in particular was just a really honest glimpse into what it's like to be me as a cheater, holding myself accountable and portraying it in not necessarily a good light. It's called Deja Voodoo, and that's kind of a title that I can picture coming from her point of view, as in feeling kind of trapped in a marriage where you keep seeing the same things over again, and you can kind of see them coming and sense them coming, and having to deal with and live with the pain constantly. So when you listen to it, you can think about all the times that you've lied and hurt somebody, and you can think about all the ways that you wish you could make that pain go away, but you're still kind of trapped in a situation. Anyway, this is it. Deja Voodoo.
She's twitching in my poison gaze, she is my slave. I remembered her so barely there, and now she's here to stay. It's a shame this mirror sees something that I can't. It's the truth I do not recognize. I'm a ghost right where I stand, and I'm making up for mistakes, that's the better half. I'm always stumbling to leap forward while I'm patching up the past, and unattended I'm a disaster, and a lie right to your face. It's like I slipped a cover, left a shadow in my place. So now you see me, and now you don't. You never believed in magic, and I know you won't. Still I'm pulling out my tricks to impress you all the same. As smart as you are, you still love to be entertained. Now open up your eyes and let me occupy your brain, while I whisper those sweet nothing vows that were taken all in vain. My life came unglued when you said we had to talk. I knew you scratched the surface, didn't know you'd peeled it off. And the truth is, without love, I'm really quite a sloth. And each story I've inspired only becomes a sob. And I am no cure, not the antidote. I'm like a virus that just grows and grows and won't go, go, go. No, no, no. Shameless mirror sees something that I can't. It's a truth I do not recognize. I'm a ghost right where I stand, making up for mistakes, that's my better half. I'm always stumbling to leap forward while I'm patching up the past.
And as you've heard, there was no drums in that song. That's just David Fitzgerald and I. That song started out completely acoustic and completely just lyric driven, and he helped me kind of structure it and put a little lead over it, and I think it sounds really good now. All right, moving on. After I figured out that David was such a good songwriter, we really started to create more of a live show. And believe it or not, we wrote all of our songs, and we didn't play a show for 2 years after we wrote our first numbers. We practiced them very hard, and we made a few videos. We actually made a video, well, I'll get to it later. But we really just wanted to focus on making the songs good. And we're both parents, and we live a little bit away from each other, so we used whatever time that we could to make these songs better. And one of the first ones that we wrote together was called Moon Moth, and we always considered it kind of a hype song. I was really into spoken word. I still am, but at the time I was really into spoken word, and I was just writing a whole bunch of rhyme stuff, you know, and a whole bunch of sort of slam poetry. And so we came up with this concept of Moon Moth being sort of the anthem of From the Cocoon, and the chorus, you know, and not giving up and get out of the way if you're going to be one of the people that stand in the way of our success. And we weren't talking necessarily about monetary success, but just the fact that, you know, it's really hard to pull together a band in your late 20s and have a family and a full-time job and stuff like that. And so it's kind of, you know, we're talking to our bosses, we're talking to our significant others, we're talking to just the people who have something negative to say about being in your late 20s and not being a successful band already, you know, but just using music as a crutch and using music as a way to meditate. Those things we do quite often as musicians, pulling ourselves away from reality and sucking ourselves into these sonic environments really kind of help us get through. And so music is almost essential. So Moon Moth became our opener for every show that we did. We really enjoyed doing the intro, and occasionally we'll have a fog machine and really cool lights and stuff like that. But really, it was just about getting the audience engaged. So, without further ado, here is Moon Moth. Going nowhere like the house that I live in. If you think you're a big fish, let me take you swimming, cause I'm no joke. You slow poke, need to wake up, take a no dose. I'm potent, just remember, take one dose. I'm sweet like Texas iced tea, just the way my wifey likes me. I knew who's the cool to the roll, mountain blue, cause I don't need to sound rude, but I won't give it up, no, don't stand in my way. No part in this game, no rat in this race. that bass that you hear there, that really awesome bass, that's Ricky Red. He was only with us for a couple of years, but he added a lot of style to our project, and he's just a really funny dude and a really fun guy to be around in general. Jason Byram played drums. We were lucky to have him. Didn't realize it at the time. In all honesty, we were looking for somebody like with a little more individual style, and we didn't realize that we had a dedicated drummer. You know, we had a guy who was dedicated to loving music. So when he finally picked up his stuff and moved to Nevada, it was really sad. You never know what you have till it's gone. I should say that before we started writing any of this sort of rock, grunge feeling stuff, it was folk. And Corey Sutton and I, Corey's from Dallas, we met in 9th grade. We became friends right away, and we started a project called Bentwood that was very attractive to, we were teenagers at the time, and it brought a lot of people into this one particular venue called the Cabaret. On a Wednesday night, we had like 120 students in there, and it was funny because it's a bar, so nobody could drink, and it was just full of kids who were there to see us do these punk rock covers and stuff. Corey and I's style has always just been us, and we really didn't give a shit who liked us. We loved just playing music, and our friendship has lasted through the years over some really turbulent times, and it really kind of started with just he and I bonding over music. And when we first started writing From the Cocoon music, it was soft and lyric driven and a little psychedelic, which we were into at the time. He and I were both, our drug of choice was acid, and exploring the mind and exploring the realms of the imagination. We weren't the Beatles by any means, but we definitely tried to expand outward. And so a lot of our music came from that place, sort of an understanding that feels fleeting at times when you kind of get life and understand it, and then it's gone, and then you get it and you understand it and it's gone. And so this next song that I'm going to play is one of the originals as well. It was written back in 2008, and it's called Helped to Transcend. And it's from the perspective of a caterpillar named Murray that we sort of adopted and watched him metamorph. He literally crawled out of his cocoon to arrange his place, I guess, to try to find like a warm space or something. It was really interesting. We would come home and he would just be moving around. It was really weird. And eventually he moved, and we didn't see him move, and I'm just going to throw the Corey under the bus for this one. He stepped on him. He squished him right out of his cocoon, and so we never actually got to see what Murray would become. He never became a butterfly, sadly. But this song was inspired by a caterpillar, y'all. It's called Help to Transcend. It was written by Corey Sutton and I, and here it is.
What's my purpose as a speck on this bright blue ball?
We're not supposed to know.
On my last breath, on my last chance, on my last dime, and I'm running out of time to tell you this. My heart's just a fish on a hook. Your smile was the bait that I never should have took. My lids stay shut, I'm never awake. I'm dreaming up ways to make my escape. As far as life goes, I'm sick on the ground. We are all lost here. say I hadn't given up so soon. I'd still be wrapped up in my cocoon, growing bigger and stronger wings, wants to fly me over anything. But I still crawl and scrape on the ground, and I still sink when I hit the water, and I can't fly no matter how hard I try. I can't No, it's not the wind. I'll figure it out. No, just leave me alone. Give me time to figure it out. No, it's not important. I mean, I guess it is important right now. It's not working for me, you know. I got nothing. Like it's sticky in the blood. I can't help but feel useless when I can't find love. With my soul, just dirt and water, black sheep of the bloodline. You led to the slaughter. You led to the slaughter. Oh, bring your daughters, yeah, because we want them to see. Oh, how you made us feel all these years, making this look so easy. Blood splashed down on the rug.
As you heard, that song's way more lo-fi than probably most of our recordings. It was recorded with one of those little USB mics, and it was recorded on a back porch in Austin, Texas. So, not a lot of production in that song, but definitely a story. And the only reason I really play it is to show you guys the range of from where we started to where we are. I know I'm kind of bouncing around here, but it's hard to tell one part of the story without telling the other part of the story, and so on. So a lot of the songs I won't play just because I feel like they were a part of that time period that I've already explained. And there's some parts that are just key to understanding who I am and where From the Cocoon came from. And that particular song, as lo-fi as it is, really does show what where the concept of From the Cocoon came from, and the evolution, and how fast it can get stomped out. You know, one day you're crawling around trying to find a safe place just to evolve, and the next day somebody who's not paying any attention just wipes you off the face of the planet. It's the fragility, man. It's Joe Rogan, I've heard him say it. It's we're just water balloons full of blood, and it's amazing that we've made it as far as we have. We drive these giant weapons around, essentially, that could take us off, and I got stuck in a lot of it yesterday going through Dallas and Austin. Kind of like psychology in motion, you know? It's interesting. Earlier, I was talking about a video that we made, and it was made to one of the novelty songs, just the 4 fun songs. It was also produced by the same guy that did Underground, Christopher Byman. He's a really badass drummer and musician, and I don't think he plays much anymore, but when he did in his heyday, he played for a band called $50 Dynasty, and they're also a local band from here in Bandera that aren't together at the moment, but I don't feel like they're going to be on a hiatus forever. They're just too talented to not be together and doing what they do. Incredible rock band. And I had the privilege of working with Chris, making a few of these little beats and other stuff as well. I would send him demos and he would put drums on them, and it would inspire other drummers and so on and so forth. But this one here is the prequel to the underground, sort of how I ended up in the underground. And it was made years later, and it was not during the Walking Dead time, but it's a little before that, and it's because I was playing a lot of zombie video games. And so it's called Zombie Days, and it's sort of a story about ending up, it starts out basically the whole neighborhood's infected, and including my own home, and my spouse trying to eat me and just having to get away by whatever means. And we made a video for it. The day that we filmed the video, we actually had like 50 people confirm on the wonderful Facebook page that we had that they were going to be there, and nobody stayed. So we had our friend Amanda Bustamante and her nephew. It was the only people that showed up to help us, and Amanda filmed the entire thing. She's an amazing photographer and, come to find out, videographer, and I edited the entire thing. And what we got out of it was just sort of a really funny little introduction to the song. The song is called Zombie Days, and it's just for fun, so y'all enjoy it.
It's the end of the world.
Hope you're not alone.
So you're gonna need a crew to fight them off. I'm on the run, had to kill my wife of a cranium. Tried to take a bite, now my neighborhood is fucking zombified. I grabbed a shovel and a kitchen knife. I stole the neighbor kids' buffy bike. Now I'm fucking running for my life. It's a little out of the way, but I'd really like to keep my brain.
Zombie day, 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 zombie
I formed a zombie band and we're craving beats. When we're hungry, we just hit the streets. A zombie appetite can't be filled. I'm hiding in the bushes, nipping at your heels. Never knew being dead could be so much fun. Chasing fat people just to watch them run. And God forbid I ever catch up. That's okay, being a zombie doesn't suck.
zombie day, zombie day, zombie day, zombie day, zombie day, zombie day, zombie day,
Let me paint another picture for you from the underground. We are not the kind of kids that you want around. We don't tire too easy, and we don't sit down. My dreams died when my heart shut down. Killer beats, killer band. I don't waste, I eat it all when I kill you, man. Undead and untouchable, no taxidermy. I'm unstoppable, still lots of trouble. And if you got a shovel, then grab it on the double, cause we're taking it to the underground. There's lots I gotta do, so I can't stick around. Be a devil unless we're ever gotta make the afterlife better, 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 better.
The fading heartbeat. That song deals with death on a comedic level, but I'm no stranger to it. I have a lot of people really close to me die in some really awful ways, and death has often been a topic that I've written about, just because I really, as much as I think I understand it, I don't see any, I don't see any way to prepare for it. I had a friend she was kidnapped and murdered and tossed on the side of the road. I had an aunt that beat cancer, and then eventually the cancer beat her, and a grandfather as well. I've had friends die in car accidents, overdoses, and really there's just no way for me to ever really accept it. I'm always looking for signs from those people, you know? I don't know how the process ultimately ends. And I'm always looking, especially in like a really good acid trip or a mushroom trip, I'm looking for some sort of doorway into that dimension. I feel like it's just right there. Like we can almost touch it, you know? And so I've written a few songs that have sort of helped me get through that. And I've also, a lot of people suffer either from a mental illness or just in general the feeling that you don't belong here. And me personally, I suffer from suicidal tendencies, suicidal thoughts, probably daily. Just trying to understand where I fit into this. And I have kids, and I have a lot of purpose, and I have a significant other that loves me, and I have family, and there's really no reason for me to end my own life. However, I struggle with it because sometimes it all just seems very meaningless. And one of the hardest topics I've ever written about, and one of the songs that I don't necessarily like to play live, is the song called Monster in Its Place. Because I even if I'm not dealing with it that day or at the moment, I have to channel that in order to drag this emotion out of me. And this is the only song where I really cut from my lungs and I really belt it out. And I'm not an amazing screamer. I'm not very good necessarily at this genre. However, I feel like this song really does connect to a lot of people, because a lot of people are embarrassed to admit that they have these thoughts. And I've come to learn through just expressing it that that's how I get through, is admitting like, hey, these thoughts are inside of me, and the good advice that's being given to me, I can take it and I can make it through today. Listen to those people who love you, listen to them. And when they believe, when they believe in you, you can believe in them, and they want to see you live another day. And sometimes it seems very selfish, their reasons, but I think that a lot of times people get really ashamed to feel this way because they don't want to feel as though they're manipulating somebody or putting somebody in a position where they have to coddle them, So this is kind of dealing with it on your own. It's a song written by David Fitzgerald. The music was written by David Fitzgerald. The lyrics are all me, and of course it's performed with the full band. So it's a little heavy if you guys aren't into that. I urge you just to listen to the message, and we'll talk more after this.
Elevated madness and so wishes I had straight to the flames.
As you heard there, it's a bit of a reach for my stylings. Like I said, David's very metal influenced and loves to exercise it. He loves to be able to solo and just like crunch down. So I feel like that song is therapy for both of us in that way. It was really, to me, examining the lyrics, it was really easy because I really wanted that message to be heard by all of mankind. So this is a good step in the right direction, I feel like. So for people not feeling alone. I don't want to drag this out. Like I give most bands on this podcast, I give attention. I give 1 hour, you know, I play 5, 6, 7 songs or whatever, and we do a good half hour of interview. I know I've had longer ones, but I just don't feel like it works unless we're just sitting down and talking and we're not talking about exclusively music. We're just sitting and just bullshitting. Then I feel like it works really good. But when we're just sitting here talking about songs, I definitely don't want to drag this on. I'm very proud of the work that I've put out, and I do hope to put out more one day. I guess I struggle with wanting the songs to come out the way that I feel like they're going to be most impactful, and production is a big part of that. Having, sometimes for me in particular, having a team to work with is really important to me, because I don't want it to be just my ideas. I feel like they do hold weight, but it's more of a collective for me. It's a migration with a whole flock, you know? And I've been very fortunate to work with some really awesome people, and I've worked with some shitheads, and it hasn't detoured me from wanting this music to be out there. I've got a lot of faith in it. So that's why I put together this episode. It's been a long time coming, and I definitely don't want anybody to think that I'm self-indulgent. I don't want people to listen to the podcast and think that I'm trying to get my band out there. That's not really what this is about. I've kind of given up on any sort of monetary gain. I've given up on the ability to get that collective together and play a bunch of shows in order to keep ourselves relevant and get a bunch of followers to our band, or even sell stuff on Bandcamp. I've just given up on that only because I feel like my legacy could be that I'm doing something good for other people while I'm doing something that I like to do. That's something that I hear quite often, and I feel like that's truly what I'm doing here. I give the platform to bands that have never had a platform before, and 99% of them are very grateful for it. And thank you guys so much for joining me on this journey. It's almost been a year, y'all, and I think it's just getting better. There's been a lot of trials and tribulations in a year. Everybody knows that. It's not just me. And this was kind of it was half and half. It was half great and half tragic. And I'm looking forward to just moving forward. And I hope that you people that are out there that are way better musicians than me don't give up. That always disappoints me. Not that I'm disappointed in you, just that there's so much talent out there that doesn't get fed. And it starves, and people go into like a reclusive state. Chris Peterson, if you're listening to this, my friend, that's you. You're one of the most amazing guitarists that I know, and you're always so critical of yourself, but you mentored me, and you helped me become the guitarist that I am. And I know that we've lost touch over these years, and through various channels. I hope that you understand that you are one of the most amazing musicians that I know. And I'm speaking to all the Chris Petersons out there that just gave up because they didn't have the support. Don't give up, man. Make a podcast or talk to me. And even if you're not playing shows, we'll talk about your music, and we'll bring it to light right here. Let this podcast be an example of that. You can soar with me. I'm going to close out with a song that I call Neighbor to the Clouds. To me, it's a song of hope. To me, it's a song that tells my story. It's very hard to raise a family these days, and it's very hard to maintain your sanity while also keeping a 9 to 7 job. And so this is the song where I talk about dreams becoming a reality and how much that can change your life. And especially if it doesn't happen for you, you know, how much it could negatively impact you, and the repercussions it has on a family and just on a man's soul or a woman's soul. It was written by David Fitzgerald and myself, performed with the entire band. Corey Sutton, Ricky Red, Jason Byram. David plays leads, he plays keyboards, and Corey Sutton plays the rhythm. I do all the vocals on this one, and it truly is one of my favorite From the Cocoon songs. I'm very proud to be a part of this number. In the words of the great Jim Morrison. All right, you guys, that's going to be it after this song. I'm going to sign out now. Please, everybody, do something good for each other today. Go explore some other podcasts. Go explore nature. Go hug the ones that you love and kiss the ones that need to be kissed. And please, 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 whatever you do, follow the golden rule.
Ascending higher for a different point